So I only did this for around 4 weeks because I had to leave to Mexico on a trip, and I didn't want to leave my house empty just because, I thought, why should this house be empty when someone could be staying in here and possibly making me some money? Not to mention, I could also learn a little bit of how the Airbnb game works. So today I'm going to be telling you 8 things I learned on this Airbnb experience so that hopefully you don't commit the same mistakes I committed, because these 4 weeks were actually very informative and something completely new to me that, again, I just happened to learn a lot within these 4 weeks. But anyways, guys, my name is Fernandoherrera, and again, before we continue, please help me by smashing that like button, subscribing, because I do post more content about similar videos like Airbnb, Turo, side hustles, crypto investing, and honestly, it's just kind of fun. Hopefully that content does bring you value and it's helpful to you. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and jump into the topic for today. Now, the first thing you might be asking yourself is, why in the world would you list your own house, the house you personally live in, to list it on Turo? People are going to destroy it. People are just going to be trashing it, partying hard. But like I said, actually, I found this as an opportunity for me to learn how Airbnb works, especially because I have been tempted in buying a second property to list it on Airbnb to get a little bit more of income. But I have been afraid because it just seems to be like something that you need to know a lot of. You need licenses, you need businesses, you need to me, it was just seemed like very complicated that, buying a house just to do that is no easy purchase. And if you do it wrong, then suddenly you're going to be in a very, very, very bad spot. So again, this was for me the perfect opportunity to try Airbnb, to list my house, just kind of like to try it out and to get familiar with the policies, how it works, if there's a damage, what happens, and obviously the legality of it, right? But anyways, the very first thing I learned was to communicate your expectations properly to the guest. So in my case, I did the mistake of doing a very small description and very small policy, I guess, of just saying, hey, just don't burn down the house and everything else is possible. I did the mistake of not mentioning there's absolutely no parties, there's absolutely no pets allowed, there's absolutely no smoking allowed inside or outside. So I did have a guest who I guess happened to just have a family meeting, which turned out to be like a 25 people meeting, which was just very bad. And even though I didn't get phone calls from neighbors, I felt pretty bad because I'm normally that type of neighbor who is very strict and kind of just gets very frustrated with anyone partying or having loud music. Now, luckily for me, there was no loud music outside or inside the house. It was simply just a gathering of people, but still, you don't want to have a whole bunch of cars outside of your house because it just doesn't look well, and you don't want to have this whole bunch of people in your house too. So after that, I did started putting in my instructions that please gatherings of no more than 7 people or else to book somewhere else. And that did seem to correct the problem, because after that I had absolutely no problem at all. The number 2 thing I learned was to actually change the doorknobs on every single room, because I had a guest who, I don't know how in the world they locked themselves, I guess, out of the room. And one of the rooms, which is actually this room that I'm recording my YouTube videos, and I guess they just locked it and they couldn't open it, and then they just left it like that. And then the cleaning person that helps me clean the property or to clean the house didn't open the room or didn't make an effort to open it. And so eventually I ended up finding out until the next guest that this room was locked, and that was just a big mess. We had to call a locksmith. The locksmith ended up charging me $300, which to me was ridiculous. Unfortunately, I did not have a person who was a locksmith. I try to have connections of all sorts of types, but locksmiths, for some reason that day, it was like a Sunday night and nobody was answering the phone. So I had to just help the guest out and get the door opened. Now, the $350, to my defense, was something that I did not agree on. The guest actually took the liberty to call a locksmith, open the door, and then give me the bill for $350. So unfortunately, even though as bad as it looks on me, I told him, look, I'm sorry, but I never agreed to a $350 bill. Unfortunately, the most I'm going to be able to give you is $100. I hope you're fine with that, but I just can't put $350 just to open a lock. Luckily for me, we were all happy with the end result. He agreed to the $150 or the $100, and he did not leave a bad review, and I just didn't simply leave a review for this reason. So moral of the story here, guys, is that, you know, I spent $100 just to open a door. So you'd rather just go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy those big 5 kit with doorknobs that you can open with a coin, and that way you never have anyone locking your doors accidentally or purposefully. The number 3 thing I did learn was it's important to have leather furniture. So again, if you are thinking in buying furniture for an Airbnb, I would recommend just using leather, because when I came back, I found that my sofa, it's like a cloth material. It's like a soft, hairy cloth material, and it's just very easy to get stains, and you know, people spill drinks, and it's just a lot of work. So I learned this from the cars, because I also rent a Tesla Model 3 and a Prius on Turo, which is similar to Airbnb, but I have more videos on that subject, you know, if you want to search them in my channel. But I learned that the Tesla is oftentimes a lot more faster to clean because of the leather seats. And that's why a lot of people just like having leather seats, especially if you're going to be putting your house on Turo. I would recommend everything has to be leather, at least the sofa and, you know, any couches that you're going to be having. Because at the end of the day, if they spill something, you just grab a wipe, you wipe it, and you're done. The 4th thing I learned in this Airbnb experience was to close my supply room. So for some reason, I left the supply room open, which, if you don't know what a supply room is, it's just a room where I have like a whole bunch of toilet paper, paper towels, Clorox, you know, all sorts of cleaning material supplies, and, you know, for like a whole year, right? And so I should have locked that, because when people come and then they open this like Walmart, you know, with all this like whole bunch of stuff, I don't know if they just simply take it or they just use it because they see so many. But I don't know, long story short is that all my supply room was pretty much emptied out, and not super bad. I mean, it wasn't like it was like completely empty, but you could tell that it wasn't just normal regular use, you know, like who's gonna use like 10 toilet paper towels, like rolls, in like 4 weeks, right? That's like too much, right? But I mean, it could be. Maybe I'm new to the business, and maybe you do have to expect a lot of toilet paper for Airbnb rentals. But I would say just lock your supply room and then have the cleaning lady open it, restock everything that needs to be restocked. And then that way, if somebody during their trip just happens to finish all of their paper, toilet paper roll, well, brother, there's a Smith's like 5 minutes from here. Just, you know, go and grab some more toilet paper. Now, for my defense, I do leave a toilet paper on the restroom and another one in, you know, hidden in like a cabinet in case there's like an emergency, you know, and somebody needs like toilet paper. But anyways, the 5th thing I learned was not lowering my price too much. And this happened to me on Turo as well, where a lot of guests just lower their prices just to get that booking. And to me, that's what I wanted with Airbnb. My fear was that I was going to be out for 4 weeks and I wasn't going to get a booking for my listing within those weeks. So I was like, no, I'm going to go super low so that, you know, I can make sure I'm booked, because this is a learning experience. It's not so much a money-making experience. So I did a quick market analysis, and the lowest property comparable to mine was $200 per night. And I decided to list my house for $90 per night, which honestly, in less than like 2 hours, my whole 3 weeks, like 3 weeks were just completely booked, like immediately. It wasn't until like the first hour that I was like, whoa, this is booking way too fast. So I started increasing my prices from 90 to 120 and then eventually 180, and they just booked fairly quick. So I did feel a little bit frustrated, because I realized then that the demand is so big, at least in Vegas, it was so big at that time, or, you know, during those months that I listed my property, that I left some money on the table. I could have easily billed $200 per night comparable to the other properties. I'm pretty sure it would have booked either way, and, you know, I would have gotten an extra $1,500. So if you're going to be starting Airbnb, try it out for first week, maybe lowering your pricing or whatever, but don't leave money on the table. If the market is 200, then trust the market and put your house at 200. Now, also, I do want to say that during the time I was gone, I did not realize that EDC, a big carnival festival, electric carnival, it's called the Electric Daisy Carnival Festival, and it's pretty big in Vegas, and it normally gets super packed. And I didn't realize that when I was going to be gone, the EDC was going to happen. And one of the nights I noticed that no properties were below $550 per night. So I decided to just follow the trend and change my property from like $200 to $560. And to my surprise, there was a guy that booked 2 nights with me, And those 2 nights alone ended up making me $1,000, which to me was just like, dude, I rent cars and that's what I make for like the entire month. So like Airbnb was to me like, holy smoke, this is like renting cars but like on steroids. It's like it's incredible. But anyways, guys, the sixth thing I learned when doing Airbnb was to try to have a Wi-Fi code password paper somewhere. Because even though I did share the network and the password through the Airbnb app, I guess just a lot of people that don't read any of those instructions. And I often got messages saying, hey, what's a Wi-Fi password? And it's just kind of frustrating to just have to go back. And it's fine, but it's just a lot easier if you have like a written piece of paper, put it with a magnet on the fridge and saying, house rules and maybe the Wi-Fi password and the network. If not, I have seen some people or some hosts have custom made magnets which look very nice and makes your house just looks a little cleaner. I did find a magnet similar to the one I'm talking about on Facebook, which again, I'll try to see if I find a picture and I'll put it somewhere here. But I think, investing in one of these actually pays off and it just looks very, very clean. Another alternative to fix this, which again, I'm probably thinking of doing, is just uploading an unlisted video on YouTube, or just go about over the house rules rather than having people read. Maybe watching a 2-3 minute video might be a lot more digestible for your guests. That again, eventually might result into better outcomes and less problems with your property. The seventh thing I learned in this experience was never leave smart assistants or smart devices in your house. So I'm sure you guys obviously don't know, but my house is full of smart gadgets, right? So all the smart lights, all the plugs, all the speakers, and I have like a whole bunch of Google assistants in every room. And so I left them thinking, okay, this is going to be a little bit of a plus because you're going to just be able to say, hey, Google, turn on the lights, turn on this, turn off the fireplace, turn on the TV, turn off everything. But it turns out that some people just are not very tech savvy and they would often turn on and turn off the lights. And when you do that continuously for like 3 times, the lights start flashing because it's thinking, it's like a setup process. So long story short, is that I started getting some calls of people saying, hey, the lights of the house are flashing and what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, oh my God, like that was just more of a headache. So I would say maybe just stick to regular lights and maybe avoid putting any speakers, or maybe if you are going to leave them, I would say the lights is the most important thing. Just don't put any smart lights because then they'll be calling you if they get disconfigured. The number 8 and the most important thing that, again, so if you stayed all the way through this video, you made it through here, well, very good, because this is one of the most important things I did learn on this process, and that would be the legality of Airbnb. So before I listed my property on Airbnb, I was not aware that you needed a permit. I thought it was just as simple as, my house is insured, I have everything in place, I'm gonna list it. Airbnb actually didn't even ask for anything. They just took pictures and listed the property with no problem. But later, once I joined a Facebook group, I found out that I do need to have a permit, which again, now I've suspended obviously renting my house on Airbnb, and I intend in getting that permit. So moral of the story for this point is, if you're thinking and buying a property, I found out that here in Vegas, there cannot be another property within 2,000 square feet away or something like that, that is already an Airbnb property, or else your property is not eligible for hosting or being hosted at Airbnb. Also, some HOAs prohibited the thing of just small rentals, like short-term rentals like Airbnb. So I would recommend, if you are thinking and buying a property, which now I am actively looking for buying a property for Airbnb because it's a great business. It's a business that's definitely worth joining in. Well, now keep these things in mind. What's the legality? Do you need a permit? What are the restrictions? Do you have an HOA? And then with all these things in mind, then suddenly before you go out and buy blindly, you could go out and buy a property that meet these criteria. So when you buy it, you don't have any sort of problem at all. But well, guys, there you guys have it. These are the 8 things I learned as an Airbnb host for just like four weeks or a month. The overall experience was actually very, very good. I mean, I had absolutely no damages for the whole month. Normally my mortgage payment is around $1,200 a month for my house, and I was able to rack a staggering $3,600 of revenue, which again, to me, it was just like incredible. Now, for those of you interested in how it kind of worked, let me know in the comment section below if you guys want a more in-detail video of how my process worked. But I did have a cleaning person that helped me clean the house, and I paid her $100 every time she would come and help me clean the house. That would include sheets, laundry, mopping, brooming, making sure the house is clean and just ready for the next guest. My overall occupancy rate for the whole month was 95%. So that really there was only maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 days that were not occupied. But overall, it was like booked. It was like customer or guest after guest after guest, and it was actually pretty busy. So I really look forward to bringing more Airbnb tips to my channel, because again, I learned a lot, and I have another video or other videos that I'm going to be listing on the Airbnb topic, specifically of things that I want to maybe further elaborate. So again, if you guys have something that you have a question on, feel free to comment in the section below, and follow me on Instagram. A lot of people do reach out to me via Instagram. Maybe you could reach out to me in there as well, so I can respond to any custom questions you might have. But again, thank you so much guys for watching. I do appreciate everything you guys do for this channel. Thank you again. Have a great week. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.